Pastor Brian from Summit Church here. There's a change coming to the worship center at Summit Church. Now, everyone I've shared this with has a really surprised look on their face and ask why we'd want to do this. The change is we're getting rid of the grand piano. Why we're making this change is the topic for this week's edition of Wednesday's Words with Pastor Brian. Like I said, everyone I've shared this with sort of looks at me with this surprised look and wants to know why we would get rid of our grand piano. They also want to know what Chad thinks about this because that's the instrument he plays every Sunday. So I want to start by saying that Chad was the one who came to me with this proposal. This isn't being done to Chad, it originated with him. And I think I had the same surprised reaction when I first heard it from him and asked him why. He gave me two reasons why this would be a good direction for Summit Church. And after thinking it through, I've added a third reason. And those reasons are what I want to share with you. The first reason is financial. Chad brought this proposal to me last fall when we were making this year's budget. Our grand piano is now over 20 years old and needs some repairs. The man who takes care of it said that the pedals need work, the hammers need to be redone, and the soundboard needs some adjustment. Altogether, this work will cost around $3,000 to $5,000. Additionally, the temperature in our sanctuary fluctuates throughout the week. We don't keep it heated all week in the winter or cooled all week in the summer. And as you can imagine, this affects an instrument like the piano. And so we currently spend about $1,000 per year just keeping the piano tuned. When you add the tuning onto the repairs, we're looking at around $4,000 to $6,000. Chad said we can buy a very good keyboard for about $3,000. Well, that's a lot less than the cost of keeping the current piano in working order. Now, the second reason is musical. It used to be that electric keyboards didn't sound as good as a real piano. The early versions of electric keyboards tried to emulate the sound of a piano by creating sound waves that were similar to the sound waves produced by an actual instrument. But the result was different and disappointing. It just never really sounded the same as a real piano. Well, technology has changed. The newer keyboards no longer try to emulate the sound of a grand piano. Through MP3 technology, they play a recording of an actual piano, and a really good one at that. So when Chad plays the keys on a new keyboard, you will hear a recording of the same keys being played on something like a Steinway. In addition, it opens up other possibilities. We've all seen times when Chad plays his keyboard rather than the piano because he wants a different sound. A new keyboard will have all of that in one package. So it costs less and sounds better. In fact, we could replace a keyboard like this every 3 years and just break even with the amount we're currently paying just to keep the current piano tuned. Well, those were the reasons Chad brought. There's one more reason why this change makes sense. And let me be clear, Chad is not retiring. Chad has not announced that he's leaving. In fact, I hope he's here leading us in worship for a number of years to come. But when that does eventually happen, chances are the new worship leader here won't want a grand piano. It's more likely he'll play guitar. And even if he does play a lead from the keys, it's more likely he would prefer a high-quality keyboard to a grand piano. So this change makes sense financially, it makes sense musically, and it sets us up for the future. When we discussed all this during the budget process last fall, the elder board agreed that this was the right move. I asked Chad to wait until summer to begin this process so we could have the piano at Easter and through the spring. Now, chances are some of you watching this are thinking, well, that makes sense. Thanks, Brian, for letting us know, and you're ready to move on. But I would guess that others of you are thinking that even though there's a good logical case on why this makes sense, you're still kind of struggling with this news. The reason I know that is that I kind of feel that way myself a little bit. I understand that it makes sense, but I like seeing the piano up there on Sundays. I like how it looks. The sanctuary will feel different without it. But I have to admit that this is more about my preference for sort of the visual aesthetic of the room. The fact that I like how something looks doesn't mean we should go that way. It's probably more a function of my age. I need to own my own feelings here and not let them get in the way of what's best for Summit Church. And considering all of the rationale, I do believe that changing from the grand piano to a high quality electric keyboard is what's best for the church. Now, we have a practice here at Summit that we make things like this available to church members before selling them outside the church. If you are interested in buying the grand piano, please contact Chad in the next 2 weeks. After that, he will begin listing it in other places and various online websites. I don't know how long this will take, but our goal is that we'll all be completed by the start of fall ministry in September.